Hey, this is William and Ryan. You're listening, hopefully watching the Use Case podcast. We have Lauren on from SeekOut. We're going to be learning all kinds of cool new stuff. Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
You are doing great. Good call. That's it. That's
I've
all I
got a
needed.
sunny day in Seattle, so I consider myself lucky too.
That never
Yeah.
happens.
I was
Wow.
gonna say you're in the office.
I am in the office
I see
today.
the purple.
Yes, we have two
Wow.
new hires this week, and so I'm spending time in person.
Very cool. Very cool. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. It's we're headed towards the end of the week.
Yep.
Great weather. I'm okay with this.
Okay. Well done. That's the end of the call. We
That's
should
it.
all leave and count our blessings. Lauren, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. My name is Lauren Heffran. I lead the Spot team here at SeekOut. I have 25 years in the recruiting space, and my start was on the agency side, but the last 6 years has been specifically in HR tech focused in recruiting.
Ryan started his career in staffing
I
and
did.
then executive search and then RPO.
It
So
feels like a
Not for the
long
week.
time ago.
Yeah.
yeah, those are dog years.
Yeah,
That's the thing with especially agency side. I
Yeah.
don't know how corporate. I don't know how different that is, but yeah, agencies it's tough.
I
All right,
bet
so
Ryan and I would both say night and day different.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see any different. It was just slower, more bureaucracy, all that crap. But staffing
Yeah.
was much more fun. I enjoy
really
staffing. Yeah, more of a hustle.
Not the hustle. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
too
Yeah,
funny.
it was my Wolf of Wall Street days. Throw the headset on, walk around, beat my chest, pretend I'm a cool guy, and make some placements and get paid.
Exactly. The glory
Doesn't
days.
doesn't suck. So tell us a little bit about Spot. You're leading this initiative. What is Spot for the?
Y- Yeah, so the Seek Out mission has been to always to find, attract, and hire top talent. Historically, we've had one way of doing that, which is enabling internal talent teams through technology. Now, today, we have a new team called Spot, which is a fully managed service. So companies can actually offload their recruiting needs to our team, and we're directly tied to outcomes.
So we're going back to human.
Yeah, so it's actually better than that.
Tell.
Because with Spot, you're getting the best of both worlds. You are embracing AI, the most cutting edge AI in terms of, agentic AI in the recruiting space, but you're also not losing the expert human involved in the process. So our recruiters on the Spot team are not only, helping advise and counsel our customers if needed, they're also shepherding the AI along the way. So it's not, the AI is running autonomously, but there's still that human that's adding that element of spot checking and validation and using their years of experience to do so.
So are we going out to new clients with this, or is this current clients that take advantage of the offering?
Good question.
Yeah, right now it's both. We love our current customer base. We love them. They love us. They understand the brand. They also understand that the basis of Spot is the recruit product, and so they're really familiar with the power of that. In addition, we're working with a lot of customers that are new to Seek Out, and those customers are really seeking changes and transformations on their team, trying to adjust to market conditions and pressures from leadership to embrace AI. And so Spot's been a really great resource for them to do that without a lot of change management.
Now, does Spot stand for something? Is it an acronym?
It's not an acronym. It's more just a play on like spot 'em,
Ah,
Yeah.
very nice. So if
Find
I
'em spot.
said AI infused RPO, how far off would I be?
You're not far off, but I think the major difference between RPO and RPO, you're really paying for time and resources from a team.
Mhm.
With Spot, you're actually paired with a person, and that person is directly tied to outcomes. So there's two different models in which you can choose when you partner with our Spot team. One is a traditional like agency style model, which is we make the hire, you pay us a success fee. It's also a lot less expensive than a traditional agency fee. And then the secondary model is what we call slates. And so companies, especially large enterprise companies, that they already have great recruiters. They have, airtight process. They just need talent. They need candidates and pipeline. The slate model provides 10 qualified and interested candidates for their team to move forward with. So in both of those models, unlike an RPO, we're directly tied to an outcome, which is a hire or a slate of qualified and interested candidates.
Walk us through one of those scenarios. Let's go with Slate. Walk us through how that works. So I'm a client and I'm paired up with you as the recruiter. What does that look like? What's that process to get my Slate?
Right.
Yeah.
She's using the Connexa language, the qualified and interested. Y'all used another one. Qualified, interested, and available?
And a qualified, interested, and available. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was y'all's bit. Anyhow, and probably not y'all's. Probably a lot of
Random
people have
thoughts.
used it. No,
Random
but
Thoughts by
what
William.
she was using very specific words, was
Yeah.
qualified and interested. And I'm like, I've heard
Yeah.
that shit before.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you might, I'm sure they're looking at it differently than we do. We
I don't
looked at
know.
it as, you know what, we found someone, they're breathing, they're talking, they're willing to have a conversation, send them over, get paid. I know you guys are doing different. I'm not
Our
putting you in that
qualified
class.
looks a little different than that, I gotta
Yeah,
say.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying that's what you
Is
do.
there a pulse? Let me see.
I'm just saying some people I know may have been doing that. Not me. Not me. I actually care.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
I interrupted your question, Ryan. I apologize.
So the spot process is really streamlined. So our emphasis is on that first 72-hour period when you're kicking off a search. So if you're the hiring manager, Ryan, you're having a intake conversation with one of our recruiters. It's a live conversation that we record, and the power of that conversation is talking about, what do you really want that's not on this job description? And so really capturing maybe hires that have worked well in the past, things that they are, maybe biased to in a perfect profile. And so we take that transcript from the call along with the job description and we ingest that into our AI. And the AI creates a scorecard. That scorecard is used to evaluate candidates at scale. So traditionally, you would have a recruiter who builds a project and looks at profile by profile. Is this person good? Is this person not good? And then they reach out accordingly. With Spot, that evaluation piece happens at scale. We can score candidates thousands at a time, and then we take only the top scoring candidates and move them to the outreach portion. So once they get outreach to, they either reply interested, not interested, I need to learn more. That's all handled by the recruiter themselves, and then they schedule a phone screen with this amazing recruiter to talk a little bit more about their background and qualify them before sending them to our customer. So the power there is that whole process, again, is in that 72-hour period. There's no, momentum that is gained over, days and weeks while you're trying to, who is the perfect candidate in building out that project?
Yeah, I'd say, this is interesting because I've seen a couple of techs go the opposite way. Not all tech, actually offering a managed service. A company we're actually working with now is doing the same thing, where they have a solution that covers everything, but they're also offering a managed service for job posting, job ads, drawing and attracting candidates and things like that. Curious to get your thoughts on why. Why are platforms that once never did this, why are they doing this now?
I think that, William, I call on you.
Yeah.
I think it's adoption, Ryan.
Ooh.
Ultimately, and outcomes. But the adoption, I can give you a tool, but if you don't adopt the tool, it's a big giant so what? If I give you a tool and then I, in conjunction with you, teach you or just use the tool on your behalf, then the adoption's taken care of and then the outcomes hit. So
You nailed it.
I'd say it's some type of confluence between those two.
Yeah, you nailed it. And to take it a step, take a step backward to even look at a little bit more at a micro level, it's really due to market conditions. So in William's situation, that recruiter that struggles with adoption, it could be because they're totally maxed out on capacity. They don't
Right.
have time to learn something new,
Right.
or let's say, resources are being cut. And so they're really strapped on their ability to be successful. And so the volatility and unpredictability of the market has put people in really tough situations that traditional enablement hasn't really been able to fix. We can't fix recruiter capacity through great technology, right? But what we can do is we can offer flexible resources that become on-demand help for when those situations arise.
I love it. So you've worked with hiring managers for a while, we'll just say. How do you get them to understand this model? Because this is a little bit different than maybe something they've seen before, especially coming from, like Ryan said, especially coming from a technology company, a services firm like Kelly or Robert Half or, any of the Manpower, any of those types of folks are kind of used to them pitching services.
Mm-hmm.
But a tech company, especially a well-run tech company, then pitching a service, they might not know kind of what that is. And again,
Yeah.
the hiring managers, we need them on board to really understand how to, I guess, best communicate and best leverage the service.
Yeah, I would say it starts with talent and HR leaders trying to figure out what to do with their budget. There's benefits to services, there's benefits to technology, but you only have so much budget. So how are you allocating your money against what's going to give you the best outcomes? And those are really hard decisions to make. And you often don't know what the benefits will be until the quarter end or the year end where you can actually evaluate against the cost and reward. So with Spot, you're getting the best of both worlds. You have access to a human to be a liaison and a consultant like you would maybe in an agency setting who's delivering candidates on a silver platter to you, like maybe in an agency setting that someone's familiar with. But in conjunction, that recruiter is actually empowered and fueled by the AI, which is also something that talent and HR leaders are starting to be required to implement somewhere in their workflows. We're seeing a lot of articles about that. And so when you're buying Spot, you're actually buying those two things. You're buying the human and you're also buying the AI.
Let's talk a little bit about who should be using Spot. So are we talking, are these large companies that just ran out of capacity, or is this, smaller, 100-person company who may only have 2 recruiters or a recruiter, or maybe they're still using HR doing recruiting and they need some additional help?
Comma, are they also looking for purple squirrels? Like a lot of what we've seen with RPO in the past is they'll just send their hardest positions. They don't send the easy positions that they can fill or fill internally or et cetera. They put the hardest. Is that right, Ryan? I mean, do I have that right from your experience with RPO?
Not necessarily. It depends
Okay.
on the deal. I mean, you get a lot of, it's going to be different now probably, but when I was in RPO, no, they
They'd
just
send
sent you
whatever.
anything yeah. It
Okay.
was just, if you went into manufacturing, you just got all the manufacturing.
That might be Wilson specific because he's in my head right now, and they only get the hardest of the hard
Yeah,
positions.
it depends. It's client dependent.
Got it.
Yeah. And I'd say, the customer that's best for Spot is the customer that needs help hiring. And our customers right now are across the spectrum when it comes to size. We're partnered currently with seed stage startups that literally don't have any recruiting resources, any recruiting technology, and it's the founder going, how the hell am I going to make these important hires? So that's an ideal customer for us for so many reasons. They get the consultant, they get the advisor, they get the hand holding along all the interview stages. They also get advice on compensation, titles, interview process that we can really add value to their non-existent best practices. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have large enterprise companies that have incredible talent teams that are really robust. They may already even use SeekOut Recruit themselves, but they're at capacity. They have maybe hard to fill roles. There's other challenges that they experience in that situation where they need the additional resources, but maybe adding headcount internally isn't necessarily the safest bet.
So now when they pass these off on Spot, do they fully pass them off, or can they work them in conjunction with you? And then it's whoever fills it, but they also have the extra firepower in case their team can't.
If you're looking at a situation where you're at maximum capacity and roles need to get filled, it doesn't make a lot of sense for your recruiter to spend their time doing the same exact thing you're paying somebody else to do. So, in our ideal situations that work best, we're partnered directly with the hiring manager, where we can say, actually, the recruiting team doesn't even need to be burdened by this. This is not even something that they need to add to their plate. We can partner directly with the hiring manager and feed those candidates directly to them as their own recruiting team would. So that's a really ideal situation for all parties, but we also collaborate very well with recruiting teams to supplement their own efforts.
All right, I got to ask both of you
What?
a question around calibration, because I don't have the experience that the two of you have, but I've always been curious about how to calibrate in terms of the right candidates so that we can give them that right slate of candidates. And it seems to me as an outsider, it seems to be more of an art than science. And it's like some people don't know what they want until they see it. Then they get a slate and they're like, yeah, that's not it, etc. So first of all, I'm just trying to figure out how y'all have calibrated this. Lauren, you first, and Ryan, you second. How you figured out calibration?
It's such a good question, because if you were to ask me that question, 2 years ago, my answer would have been kind of what you were saying. It's a lot of art and some science, and that's where you want to, partner with great recruiters and where that experience really matters, so they can kind of read between the lines. Times are changing, technology is advancing, and what we do here at Spot is we create a scorecard. And so that scorecard is auto-generated based on the job description and the intake call. And that scorecard is, let's say, a list of 10 items that you're looking for in a candidate. And we call that, what does good look like? And so what's so critical about that when you talk about calibration is, historically, calibration is subjective. I think this person looks good. I think this school is a top school. I like these companies. These ones don't impress me. That's so subjective. How do you capture that and how do you implement that into your sourcing? The scorecard that we've generated makes an unbiased evaluation of all candidates. So when we create that scorecard, we're getting in a mutual agreement with the hiring manager that we've captured this accurately based on their perspective, not ours. And that's how we evaluate candidates at scale. And so the calibration piece doesn't become as important as it used to be, that dialogue and back and forth and feedback loop, when you're using an objective criteria to determine what good looks like.
Yeah, and then I think it gets into, Lauren, at this point, adoption for or say accepting of the process from the hiring
Right.
manager, who doesn't necessarily have that experience, right? Or they have the experience of having to be in communication, having to go back and forth, and having to recalibrate all of the time. Historically, it's been a hot mess.
Yes.
I mean, even the best of relationships with a hiring manager, the hiring manager always knows best. And
Yes.
then the recruiter, in their mind, is an expert. And I get into these debates all the time where, like, do sources really need to be online running Boolean searches and playing black hat hacker? No, they don't. They never were, but they've done it because it was cool and fun. And we've all made careers out of it. But that put them in a position where they feel as if they are the expert in every vertical they recruit. The hiring manager, however, feels they are, and then they butt heads. And so then it becomes very biased, like you said. Well, here are my favorite schools because this is what I know. And we're saying it based off of other data. Now that the technology is involved with that, it takes that away. So now I think the question is, how do you get the hiring manager who, I don't want to call him a boomer, but an older hiring manager who's been around the block 3 or 4 times, to just accept the fact that this is going to be the source of truth and this is what we're going off of.
Yeah.
Do they sign, Lauren? Do they actually, like a DocuSign? Do they sign
I
off?
only accept firstborn children in this process. Okay. So when we send them the scorecard, it's actually an interactive link that they get. So they can actually look at it in real time. They can provide feedback. They can change the scoring system, but there's an approve button. So when they click approve, that's our signal to us that this looks great and we're off to the races to start reaching out to candidates.
So they can't, I mean, I guess they could technically, but they can't really kind of come back on that a month later and go, I want to change this, right?
Well, in that situation, it's not that we didn't do a good job. That's a
Right.
level of indecisive,
Yeah,
ness
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that they're showing in their thought process around this hire. And that's okay. That happens. Things change, especially for, companies that are moving really fast. That's to be expected. It's common. But in that situation, we would need to reevaluate the rubric or the
Right.
scorecard to understand, are we still identifying the right people in the right way? I think another good example of this too is when we're sending candidates to that hiring manager, to Ryan's description, somebody who may or may not be so savvy with how we are going about this process, we actually send a candidate presentation, which again is a simple link that they can open up. But the power in this is it actually gives them a visual of how the candidate matched the scorecard. And so we actually highlight, outline, underscore where this information lies in their resume or in their LinkedIn, in their background. And also we provide charts in which how are they scoring against all areas. So you can see kind of maybe a give and take that you would naturally have to make when moving people forward.
So, real quick question. And how stupid of an idea is this? And you can be extremely frank. I'm comfortable with that.
Cue up
One
the
of the
sound effects.
No, seriously. I dish it out so I can take it. So the thing is I've always been fascinated at how slow hiring managers move, like turtle-esque. You give them a slate of candidates, and again, they've got a job. Like I understand that they've got other priorities. You mentioned founders at a pre-seed startup, they have time. So I've tinkered with this idea in my mind of creating a death clock around candidates. And it just ticks. You send them over and they got 24 hours.
Or boom,
Now,
they're gone forever.
oh, yeah, because the thing is, and the reason I feel strongly about it, again, could be misplaced, is candidates are moving far faster than we are. And so hiring managers are already turtles. So how do we reconcile, here we just gave you 5 candidates. By the time you actually got around to evaluating said 5 candidates, and then you picked 2 of them that you really wanted to interview, they're gone.
Yep. You read my
They're
mind. I mean, I was going to say the death clock already exists, and that's you lose out on a candidate you wanted to
right,
interview.
right.
And that sometimes is the hard lesson that hiring managers learn. But I think you bring up a great point. When I'm looking at ideal customers, the urgency is such a big part of that. Like, how important is this hire really to you? How serious are you going to take this partnership? And part of that is because we can move at lightning speed. So
Right.
it's not like this is going to be a slow trickle of candidates. When it's go time for us. And so we want to make sure that there's that mutual buy-in. So, we can make this hire and move on, all of us. So I think that when I'm thinking about in the perfect world, that would be a major component that we would love to, share.
Is there a use case here where you have a client on spot? You're paired up with a recruiter. They're working 6 months, right? They're doing 6 months worth of work. Is there a case here where you now begin to train the client on the software and migrate them over to software customer instead of spot
To move them on to Recruit.
or to recruit? Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I would say there's kind of two motions there. One, I think you bring up a great point. Spot might actually be training wheels for some companies, especially small companies, when they don't have the resources. The founder is the one running the process, where we can provide that support along the way as they grow their team. And then at some point, maybe they do outgrow us to some extent, where they can now transition their own team to a Recruit user and grow their business that way rather than using the service. So we do look at it as like kind of a continuum where, maybe you're graduating from one level of delivery to another.
So you mentioned success fees. How hard are those to get in reality? In theory, you sign a contract, all that stuff, and then all of a sudden you place a candidate and they leave within a given time, or maybe they're not as good. Like, horror stories are written about how people try to finagle their way out of paying success fees.
Or a success fee, just you filled the position, they've accepted.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I think,
So,
yeah, I mean, to Ryan's point, I think what he's trying to say really,
Is
clearly,
our
is,
success fee.
pay us for the work. We did the work. We got you your hire. Retaining somebody, growing somebody, evaluating their skills along the way. it's not an us thing, it's a you thing. Now,
Right.
I will say as a caveat to all of that, we do have a guarantee clause where there is some element of mutual buy-in on the success of the hire.
Right.
And so we do offer that for our agency style hires.
And that's time served, or is that performance based?
Time
Like, what is
served. It's
time served?
it's roughly like a 90-day
Yeah, yeah.
period where we're saying if this was just a wildly off hire and this is not making sense, then we want to help make it right with the customer.
That seems fair.
Lauren, what are the questions that buyers need to know? What do they need to be asking you?
Great question.
I think what's interesting right now that I'm learning through our prospect conversations right now are buyers are lacking some education on not what is AI, but when they're looking at tools and services, like where is the AI? What part of what I'm buying is AI? And I think asking a little bit more of a deeper question around where is this AI in this platform or this service offering, and how is this impacting the overall value? You see competitors or other companies in this space that, everyone wants to be an AI company, right? And when you look at where is the AI in these cases, like I'll use another recruiting software example, the AI might actually just be a chat bot that you use to search with. Now, that's AI and it's actually great. And for some people, that might be a game changer in their workflow. But the value is writing your requirements versus clicking your requirements. So where's the true value or the outcome that you're solving for? And so when you're looking at implementing AI into your world, how can you really be transformative in your choices and not just be like an easy point solution, fix, or improvement? Did that answer your question, Ryan?
It did. Yeah.
Last question from me is, a year from now, we're having another podcast. What does Spot look like then?
Oh my gosh. Well, my team will probably have doubled in size by that time. And what's really incredible is we just launched Spot in February. So the traction that we've got today has just been from organic interest in what we are building and also our brand. And so I'm really looking forward to revisiting a conversation where the momentum has built and people are starting to better understand options out there, and our customer base will continue to grow.
Final question on my side, Lauren. We touched on this earlier. Slate.
Mm-hmm.
Give me I'm just curious. Does it have to be SeekOut's definition, your definition?
Yes.
Of slate? Because I can tell you what what our definition was of a slate was just, if we were giving you a slate of 3 candidates, you got 3 candidates that we felt met the criteria and that you accepted. Not even accepted. We sent them over. If they've accepted the candidates, then they were qualified. But the slate was delivered and they met the minimum qualifications.
I love this question because I think you're right. I think historically slates can mean lots of different things to different companies. And I think also I see it most commonly in like a diversity hiring setting. The way we're using slates is qualified. And by qualified, I mean they have met the rubric that you've defined, the scorecard in which you've defined good. What does good look like? They've met your qualifications. Interested, they responded back to our email and said, yes, I'm interested in this opportunity. I want to learn more. I'm interested in interviewing. And they've passed our screen and accepted. Now, that kind of goes back to what you're saying. Accepted for us means that the company and the customer is interested in moving them forward with an interview, that they're saying, you're right, this person is qualified. I'm excited that they're interested because I want to interview them. And that person would count 1 to the 10-person slate. So we provide 10 of those people in 1 slate on Spot.
Not that clients would ever do this, and of course I lied about being the last question, but not that clients would do this, but can they end around that slate? Meaning you've given them, they've gone through this process, and then they contact them directly. Not that anyone ever would do that.
The clients 100% would, and they're doing it right now as she's on the call.
I gotta go.
Dude, my wife, it drives my wife like crazy, but because I always look at the dark like worst case scenario stuff. But in staffing, this has been going on forever. Like you get to a certain point, you pass over, and I remember people withholding, redacting information and doing all kinds of other things so that it would be harder for the client to do end arounds. And again, I don't think any SeekOut clients would ever do this.
Well,
However, we
however, I
are
mean,
humans.
you guys are right. I mean, this stuff does go on, and
Yeah.
I think that we'll probably start seeing less of it again as technology gets more comprehensive in terms of how we're tracking candidates. For instance, with Spot, we oftentimes are integrating with the customer's ATS, so we can actually see who they interviewed, or we can see our candidates moving in process. And what's really helpful about that is we can actually help them, rediscover old talent through this process and find silver medalists or candidates with, old data in their ATS that's not even searchable for them. That makes that really relevant. However, that visibility is not so bad either.
Right. Lauren, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much
Thank
for coming on the
you.
show.
Thank you for
And
having me.
congrats on Spot. Sounds really cool.